people that do fun recipes, or like Emily Marico, who, you know, makes her food on camera for you, right? But what we realized is that it's more meaningful when an influencer who doesn't post about food posts about your food product. Because
hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of The Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory. Today with me, so happy to have Halle Roberts, that is a creator commerce consultant. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
How are you, first of all?
I'm doing pretty well. I was just upstate for a couple of days, so I got to sort of rest and refresh. How about yourself?
I would like to say the same, but no, like good enough. I was in Italy for a little bit inside of Italy, so I get enough vitamin D to survive in New York in the winter, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So I think that's, but thank you for joining me today. And, you know, first of all, we'd like just to say to the audience a bit more of who you are, how you started working in this industry that is every day changing and you have to keep up with things. But how did you start?
Sure. So I started out as a social media consultant about 4 years ago. I was doing just freelance projects here and there. And then I took a job at a digital marketing agency doing paid ads. So more like, you know, when you're on Instagram and you see an ad pop up between stories, that sort of thing, rather than influencer marketing. But after about a week, we were trying to brainstorm for a client who was struggling with growth. And their particular product was a staring contest app. So it was very similar to like Omegle, where you would log on and you'd be randomly matched with someone for this staring contest. And so I was like, why don't we use influencers? You know, we can invite them to come on, they can tell their followers to come find them. And I think it'll really like get a lot of people on the platform at once, which is what they wanted. And my boss was like, oh, we can never get a hold of influencers. And I was like, I can get a hold of them. Their emails are in their bios, right? So I did, and it was super successful. And so after about a month, I was bringing in 10% of the company's revenue through influencer marketing and just iterating off of that strategy for other clients. So at that point, I was able to evolve my job into full-time social media and influencer marketing. I sort of abandoned the paid ads side of things and just focused on that. And within about a year and a half, I was the director of social media and influencer marketing, and I had a team of 4 people underneath me, 2 social media people, 2 influencer people.
Fantastic. I mean, 10% in like total revenue, that it's a lot, right? And
there's a lot of money in this industry.
It is, right? The people, I think, that still do not understand how big is the influencer marketing and all, you know, the content creators, creator economy, right?
Yeah. I remember in my first year working in influencer marketing, it went from a $9 billion industry to a $13 billion industry.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Again, it's for us that were here and working in this, it's like, yeah, of course we know, but still sometimes I'm pretty sure that if you talk with friends, they are still a bit amazed and shocked, right? Maybe
absolutely.
About numbers.
They're like, how does, you know, somebody holding up a product in their photo translate to actual sales? You know, how does that work so effectively? But it does. It's oftentimes even more effective than doing paid ads. So doing, you know, Google ads, Facebook ads, whatever, like you get a lot more from these influencers that are speaking directly to their audiences.
Absolutely. And if I'm correct, you work for different type of brands, right? You worked in the past for Simulate, and you can also say to the audience a bit more about the product. You are now, you know, a consultant for a variety of different brands, right? So, you know, including Herman Miller and Bodily. They're all different brands, right? So can we go in and just tell the audience, first of all, if you can talk about each of these so they understand what companies are, and also how it is different, the approach, you know, for each of the different brands in different industries.
Sure, definitely. So I was at Simulate for almost a year, and I was completely focused on their influencer program, building it out, all of that. And Simulate, for those that don't know, is a plant-based chicken nugget brand. Their primary product is nugs. The company as a whole is formerly called Nugs, and now it's Simulate to simulate, you know, nugs, simulate discs, simulate wings, all different kinds of products. But they're all chicken simulations. So our strategy for that was, you know, everyone's got to eat. And who doesn't really like chicken nuggets? The only people that don't like chicken nuggets are people who don't eat meat, right? And we solved for that. So this was a product that could appeal to anyone, to a wide variety of audiences. So I think a lot of people expected us to use food influencers, you know, chefs or people that do fun recipes, or like Emily Marico, who, you know, makes her food on camera for you, right? But what we realized is that it's more meaningful when an influencer who doesn't post about food posts about your food product, because it's like the one food item that they're pointing out, right? Versus like if they're a beauty influencer, they are getting inundated with all kinds of sponsorships from different makeup brands. But if you have that same beauty influencer promote your chicken nuggets, people are going to notice, and that's going to hold their attention. So we really used a strategy that, you know, around the office we called spray and pray, which is we pretty much, you know, we found anyone that we thought was funny, that we thought their content was interesting, engaging, and obviously effective. You know, we were looking for people that are regularly going viral with their content. And, you know, we would hit them up and we would send them a box, and our brief for them was less than a page. It was super simple. Like, don't say this, don't say that. Otherwise, go for it. And I think in my entire time there, I maybe had 2 influencers, you know, fix something or refilm something. And it was wildly successful. You know, there was not a corner of TikTok that you could go to and not see our products. I think by the time I left, there was 500 million views on the Simulate Partner hashtag.
Wow, that's incredible. Do you think that you can, so because Simulate is like, you know, this young and fresh type of brand, right? Where, as you said, you can really just send one page and that's it. Do you think that you can do the same also for other brands, or some other brands should have do's and don'ts, 12 pages of regulations? And how do you feel on that?
No. I think that it's super brand by brand. I think we got, I don't want to say lucky because there was a lot of strategy involved, but so we got sort of lucky with Simulate that we were able to use that very lax strategy. But I think there's a lot of other brands that really benefit from giving their influencers more information and really like, you know, gearing them up with all of that. So for example, at Bodily, you know, we have to tell them, you know, here's the scientific research behind the products, because it's a women's health brand and all the products right now are geared towards mothers. So it's a very like sensitive topic for a lot of people, and it's something that people want to be really smart about and make the right choices about. And they don't want to just buy something shiny that isn't going to work for them. So for those mothers, we typically will work with influencers that are also, you know, professionals in their field. So lactation consultants or sleep experts, things like that. And then we'll also work with some moms who can speak to the efficacy of the product, who have a really authentic connection as well. And can really, you know, give an honest review. We try to work with people that have already bought the product by themselves or tagged us in a post before, things like that, so that it's a very like authentic community and that we're engaging with them and really working off the potential there. I think for obvious reasons, you know, just sending a bunch of people nursing bras, whether they have a use for it or not, would not work. So we do have to be a lot more specific. And then like another example of a third very different brand would be Herman Miller. So they have a few different brands underneath them, but I would say the sort of through line is they're all very cool design brands, like interior design. So with them, you're really selling people on that lifestyle or that aesthetic. You know, you buy this kink vase or this sofa, and like you too can have this, you know, ideal like New York lifestyle. But something that's really cool that they do as well is similar to Bodily, like engaging with people that have already posted about the brand. And for Herman Miller specifically, there's no follower count requirements. You know, someone can have 1 or 2K and still be an ambassador and still be sent product. It's all about what you're genuinely putting out there and whether we think it's aligned with the brand image.
It makes sense. They are already doing that organically. So they already love the brand and they are a right fit. And maybe because they love it, like no matter what, they're going to do the extra mile, right?
Right, exactly.
For the brand. And so, you know, talking about us also, I wanted to ask you, how is important to look at the psychology of audience also when you do social media? Because again, you said that each brand is different, each approach is
Mhm.
different, but I guess that psychology, right, it makes a huge
Yeah,
impact, right? It's a big factor there.
definitely. Yeah, so I actually have a degree in psychology, and I never really think of it as something that is applicable for my career, but it totally is because it's vitally important.
Hmm.
I was just having a conversation earlier this morning with one of the brands I work with about how, how often do you want to see an influencer post about your product? Like, and how often do you think we should have them post where their audience will still be responsive to it and not be fatigued? Because I think what a lot of brands run into is, finding one influencer that works and then using them over and over and over again. This is a mistake that every brand I've worked with has made. And I think that's really important to recognize and to think about who the people are that you're selling to, because I think it's very easy to just look at consumers as numbers, as, oh, this video got 100,000 views, and forget who those people are and how to actually like activate them.
Makes sense. It's like a deep frequency capping, right? After a while, you want to be like that ad, show it with a frequency of X, but not more than that, right? Maybe we can
Exactly.
potentially use the same also for influencers, right? Because it's okay to show that understanding is an ambassador, but I guess that if you saw the same thing like 20 times in a row in 3 months after, we're like, okay, we get it. Like, can we talk about
Right.
something else,
And
right?
it's also like it depends what the product is, right? So
Yes.
for Simulate, we were selling an edible product. So you're probably going to buy a box in the store, and those boxes in the store are pretty small. I think they have like 10 nuggets. So
Yes.
you're going to eat those in a couple days. So, getting a reminder once a month about that product might not be the end of the world.
Yes.
But for bodily, for example, like you're not going to be buying a nursing bra multiple times a month if it
Yeah.
works, if it's a good
Yeah.
bra. And for Herman Miller, like a couch, you buy a couch probably once every few years, right?
Yeah. Of course.
So you don't need to be hitting those audiences over and over. So I think that is where it differs from from traditional advertising, because I think there's a principle in traditional advertising that someone needs to see an ad like 7 times or
Yeah.
whatever to purchase. But yeah, I wouldn't say that the same is effective with influencers and using actual people.
It makes sense, absolutely. And something also that I wanted to discuss is about the shift that we've seen, in the past years from having these, one fit all influencers, right? That I can talk about anything, right? And I was talking about this also with another guest on the podcast about going really niche, right?
Wow.
Niche oriented influencers. Are you working with this type of people? Is the one that you love the most to work with? Do you still prefer to do a mix? What is your approach there?
Yeah, so I think like all questions here, it depends. But I do think that finding someone within a certain niche can be super effective, and I think that niche depends on the brand you're working with. But like I said, I think there is sort of a reverse psychology to it where, yes, find someone in a niche, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your niche. It can be a closely aligned niche,
Hmm.
so that you stand out in their content instead of, just going for, the same kinds of people that all the other brands like you are going for, because they're, it's just going to be very saturated.
It makes sense. Like, how do you actually do that? Because you can use either platforms, networks of people. How do you find someone that again is not in the same niche, the same industry, but
Yeah.
might work? Because again, might be easy, but actually it's not. You have to have the same brand values in a way, right? To be a
Yeah.
good match, your quality of content should be good. No previous scandals.
Yeah.
There is a lot involved there. How do you do that? It's manual work. It's semi-automatic. What do
Right.
you do there?
I work completely manually. I think a
Okay.
lot of people are surprised to hear that because there are so many solutions on the market, and databases to search through. But at the end of the day, even if you use a database, you're going to have to go through each profile and make sure they're aligned if you're doing your job right. So I do it manually, but something that I have found very helpful is you find one influencer that works really well for you, and that's sort of your anchor influencer, and then you go through their network and you find other people that sort of trickle out from there that are similar to that influencer, but maybe they're a different gender, maybe they're in a slightly different niche, things like that. And you just sort of change one factor until you get something that works. So it's sort of like A/B testing in paid ads or in psychology, where you're only going to change one variable and see how it affects it. So I think that's the way to do it, is just through testing, which is definitely, can be tedious and is definitely time consuming. But once you get that right, then, you can just iterate and iterate and iterate.
Yeah, of course. Like, and that's what also I said all the time. Like, platforms in the industry are a good starting point, but then there is all the human factor behind negotiation of pricing, negotiation of other things like how many months you have to take it on, and no competition type of agreements in the future, like all type of things that you cannot do with the platform. You need a human being, right, that can communicate and also understand feelings of the other party there, right? They are not robots. They are human beings with their things going on in their life, and you want to understand, like, when not to push, when to ask a bit more, when to ask a bit less. And so I understand that there is I really want to reiterate that, like, there is a lot of manual work in this job.
There absolutely is. I don't think that influencer marketing is something that will ever be able to be completely like automated, because there are so many factors, and the soft skills of it are as important as the hard skills. So like knowing how to approach someone for a deal, knowing, how to price them, knowing what compromises you can make, and, making the influencer feel like, they're an important part of your strategy rather than just like, a lever that you're flipping or whatever.
Absolutely. And talking about, understanding the approach and understanding the human being that is, behind the influencer and content creator, you're also starting managing influencers. Is that correct?
Yes.
How did it start? Was it like a test for you with one person, a couple of people, and then first of all, how many are you managing? Are you looking at specific niche on social media, or do you have a mix of people?
Yeah, so I currently manage about 5 people, and they're across different niches, but I would say that they're all sort of like funny lifestyle type people. There's not one specific thread that connects them, but basically how I started managing was from having conversations like this, where I realized that there was a huge gap between, the brands and the influencers, and, getting to a compromise there and negotiating correctly and negotiating fairly. There would be brands asking influencers to work for, far below what they were worth. And then on the opposite end, there were also managers that were asking brands to pay influencers far more than they were worth. I don't think people think about this, but it is possible to price yourself out of work. I've approached influencers before, and their manager has said, oh, they're $30,000 for a post and they have less than 1 million followers. And it's like, there's no shot, even with a big
Absolutely.
brand. And if it does happen, it's a fluke. And I think that the reason those rates are even being put out by managers is due to greed, because they want their cut of that amount. So I think there's a lot of greed and sort of like not best practices among the management class. So that's sort of what inspired me to get involved as somebody who's worked on the brand side, on the agency side, and managed influencers. I just felt like there was a gap there. So with my influencers, I take 10%, and I don't take anything until they've made $1,000 off of a post. So that's super unusual for this industry. Typically, people take at least 20%, and it's right off the bat. But for me, it was more important to build authentic relationships with influencers and show them that, I was investing in them before I profited off of them, and that I wasn't going to just push them into deals so that I could make money. I wanted to make sure that every deal they were taking was working towards what they wanted out of their platform. Because what happens when you take those one-off deals, and maybe they're really big, and I'm not saying you should never take a big deal, but you may not see another deal for months or years, and by then you may not even be relevant. So I think what I am always trying to work towards for my influencers is getting them consistent work, getting them a 3, 6, 9-month contract with a brand, so that they know that they have that money coming in and they have that stability, and then they can focus the rest of their energy on continuing to make really great content. Yeah.
Interesting, and also unique approach for sure. Like it's the first time that I hear about this lower percentage, and also that you don't ask like from the beginning, but it's a sort of investment. And I saw this like I would say like similar in the like development industry, like for web developers. Some of them they are like starting, and then you get like paid in different ways. You get back to the course with part of your salary. I think that it's time like for some of the industry to reinvent themselves in new business models. And I also do agree when you say about the quality and having like a better relationship with because I think that we all seen all these talent agency, if we can call like them, that get a bunch of like too many people at the same time,
Yeah.
and they do a poor job. They are not happy with management. They don't spend enough time. And also like again, if you are like mostly using them as an ad space more than a person, right? So
Right.
oh yeah, I have that one for this one in a Google sheet. You just send the thing. But yeah, I do agree that you should spend more more time with that.
Right.
When do you think, just like I would like to ask you this, like when do you think, because you also done a podcast episode about talents and influencers. I know that it depends, but in your opinion, when is it that an influencer should be like, you know what, I need support, I need someone that can help me with brand deals, with management, logistics. I know there is not about numbers, but have you seen any patterns, and if so, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is to some extent about numbers. I mean, to begin with, I don't think that influencers should try to monetize their audiences until, say, they have, I don't know, 50K on TikTok and probably like 20 to 30K on Instagram. I think I've seen a lot of influencers make the mistake of taking deals too early, and their pages just turn into sort of like a shopping mall.
Yeah.
And then I think that's a turnoff when bigger brands are looking at them later. And they also may have accidentally worked with a competitor of a brand that they really want to work with down the line who would have paid them more as well. So I think holding off and really building your strategy is important, which is why I have that threshold for when I'll take a cut, because it means, hey, we can work at a very steady pace and build up your audience and build up your content and carve out a niche for you before we're monetizing and before I'm making money off of you. And I think that, I think it depends. Yes, it does depend on the influencer when someone should get involved, but I think it depends on how the influencer personally feels and where they want to go with their content. Are they really focused on growth and they're having trouble growing? A manager can help and go through your content and tell you, hey, it looks like this and this are working and this are not. Let's iterate off of this. Let's go through your analytics. Let's see when your audience is active. This is stuff that an influencer can definitely like start out doing on their own. And I'm sure that most influencers already have an idea of this, but I think having that third party look at it and have a more objective idea of what's working can be really, really helpful. And then, there's other influencers. Like the first influencer I signed was Jay Lampy. And when I signed her, she had 700,000 or 800,000. So she was already well established, but she was getting so much junk in her email, right? So I think that's also a time where you can say, I need somebody to go through this, figure out what's legit, what's not, negotiate for me. I mean, really, as soon as you're getting paid deals, you probably want a manager, because brands offer at least 2 times more when there's a manager involved. Because they see like an authority is involved, they see someone that knows what they're talking about. It's not just an influencer Googling like, how much should I charge? And, doing their best. It's somebody that has working knowledge that they can't, frankly, screw over. So I think it can be really helpful to have somebody in your corner as soon as you start getting paid work. But definitely if you are struggling with growth, or if you are just getting a lot of junk mail, those are 2 points where I think it makes sense to bring in someone.
Absolutely, I do agree 100% with you on that. And so, doing a step back, and getting back to your title, right, the creator commerce consultant. We're talking about influencer marketing, social media, now managing influencers. But we also have social commerce, live stream shopping, new things happening, and so on. What is something that you are lately like watching or reading that is either exciting you, or that is that you didn't think about it, or that you think that is like underground, that is growing, especially in the combining together the creator economy, there is this big thing, but also all the commerce side that is also growing like crazy?
Ooh, yeah, that's tough. I read a lot of things that I think are more tangentially related than, directly. I've been reading a really good book called 4,000 Weeks, which is about time management. And basically, rather than giving you any tips on how to manage your time and how to do everything, it actually is like trying to convince you of being okay with the fact that you're not going to have time for everything. So that's been something that's really helpful for me. And I think even though it's not directly about influencer marketing, it could be helpful for a lot of people working in this space, and a lot of influencers who, feel like they have to be, doing TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and making a podcast and like, activating on all of these channels. And really, they should be focusing on the channels that work for them, the channels that genuinely inspire them, the ones that they want to be creating for. Because if you put your time into something that you feel genuinely passionate about, I truly believe that it will pay off. It will eventually pay off. But you have to set aside that time, and you have to just do it. And, something they say in this book is like, you have to make that time for yourself and face the consequences. Like, and that sounds very harsh. Like, I don't mean, skip work and, to create or something, but, there could be consequences of like, you just don't get something else done in that time. So you're focused on your TikTok, you're not able to start your YouTube or something. Like, being okay with that and leaning into the things that you can do, I think can be really helpful when, you're constantly getting inundated with all this information on social media and new features and new things to try, and like all of this different advice and information that you're getting from other TikTokers and professionals in the industry. Like, just focusing on what you feel works for you and carving out time for that, I feel like is so important.
Absolutely. A lot of people, especially in this industry, I think they talk always about like, how can I make money? How can I make money? It's really about, the money amount of, monthly, yearly. But yeah, time management is important. Also, as a professional, if you want to go from just being an influencer that merely just promote third-party products to become sort of like entrepreneur and make your own things, time management is super crucial, right? Because if you don't have an idea of how you spend your time, and you see from like small things I see in life, like arriving late to something, or having to postpone on something else and procrastinate things, these are small things that if you are able to really fix and work on, then you're going to reflect also in your sort of balance. That is really difficult to have a balance, work life, especially if you're an influencer, because your life, it's always public, right? But absolutely, thanks for the suggestion there. I will take a look. Also, I think that also for me as an entrepreneur, having the time management and learning more about it is important.
I mean, you've heard like I do so many different things, and something that I've been really trying to like work on is like focusing on the things that really feel important to me, and just sort of streamlining my life a little bit in that way, so that I'm not pulled in all these different directions, as fun as it is.
Absolutely. We are also in this hustle type of like, society where you're grinding all the time, and it's okay sometimes, of course, like, to try to make it, but also, think about it that you are a human being, and take some time also to reflect, sit down, a bit back, right? And just breathe in, breathe out. And,
another way that sort of loops back to, content creators is so many people like that want so badly to be influencers. They're just making content from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed, and just putting so much time into that, and they're burning themselves out. So there's also those extremes. I think avoiding those extremes is really important. Focusing on what you want, but also not becoming obsessed with it to the point where you're going to burn yourself out and not be able to create properly. And I think also like sometimes like not focusing on the numbers for a little bit, and just focusing on, hey, I thought this was funny, I'm going to post it. Things like that can be really helpful as well, because I think your audience can sense when you're kind of overdoing it and overextending yourself.
Oh yeah, you also want to like be outside your bubble of things, because if not, you're gonna only create content you watch, and
Totally.
in a loop, right?
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree.
And is there instead any app or something that you are either using yourself or you have friends using that you think it's might be interesting to look at? Could be either like on the social media industry, but even like anything about live commerce, live stream shopping, social commerce. Is there anything that you are experimenting with, something new?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm on Be Real. I don't know
Hmm.
if you're on Be Real. I think
I
that's
am, but
probably the most recent social media I was excited
yeah.
about. That I think, even though, I think a lot of people have qualms about Be Real, but I think something that it's really good at is helping you get out of your head a little bit.
Yeah.
You have your 2 minutes to take a photo, and whatever you're doing, you put up there. And then it starts to sort of get you thinking about, like, oh, like, what am I authentically doing, and what might people respond to that I'm doing, rather than like, I need to be doing XYZ so I can take a photo and put it on Instagram or TikTok.
Hmm.
So I think, like, for people that are maybe getting too like strategic, it can be a really good way to like break that thought process and just start, like, I hate to say it, being themselves. um so I think that's a really interesting one. Another app that like I love to use is Snug, which is just like one where you can like see how photos will look on your Instagram feed and like
Okay.
swap them
Yes.
in and out. So sort of the complete opposite of the one I was just saying. It can
Yeah.
help you strategize a little bit.
Aesthetic. Yes.
Yeah. So I would say those are two that I've been using a lot, um, that I think could be super helpful or just fun to play with.
Nice, absolutely. And to start wrapping up, where also can people find you? Because again, you have your own,
Yeah.
personality online. Is it like have you different pages? Do you prefer usually LinkedIn, DM on Instagram? Or what is your approach when you want to communicate with people?
Totally. So I would say my Instagram is pretty much my like LinkedIn at this point. That's where I do a lot of business. That's where I reach out to creators. So if anyone is looking for management, or if you're looking for, on the brand side, someone to find influencers for you, you can reach out to me at Halle Robbie. So it's Halle, HALLE ROBBE for Robbie. I also have a website, halleroberts.online. And you can also reach me at Girls Carrying Shit, which is an Instagram that I run about girls carrying shit. So that one is spelled how it sounds.
And how did you say that? Was just like it's a fun project, just to test it out, or
Yeah,
is there any goal there?
that was sort of my personal creative project to get myself out of my head and to just have fun with social media again. Because I thought, how fun to just post photos of my friends and I carrying shit. And then, slowly other people started to find it and sending in photos of themselves. And it just very organically grew via, a completely UGC based model. So, while it has gotten a little bit more strategic as I'm going, it's also like a project where every time I, go to open that Instagram, I'm like, this is for fun. This is for fun. Like, what do we want to post? Like, what makes me happy? Like, what submissions in the inbox make me happy that I want to share with people right now? And, I try not to get too like caught up in like the aesthetics. Like, if you go and look at
Mhm.
it, it's very much like shit posts. But it's really fun. And yeah, there's some really big things coming for that account soon. So if it sounds even a little bit interesting, definitely check it out.
Absolutely, you need that, right? We said that before about time management, about your,
Right.
everything,
I
right?
like, I'm trying to take my own advice, and give myself a break here and there. And that's
Yes,
been one that has really helped me, ground myself and not take myself too seriously.
absolutely. Good advice, I'd say, for everyone, no matter the industry that they are working in, right? Take yourself a bit
Definitely.
less seriously. Well, Ali, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really fun. I hope the audience also will learn a lot from this episode. And for everyone else, yes, this was just another episode of The Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory. And see you the next time. Bye.
Bye.